Hello everyone, and welcome to today's ISSi-scan Datamation Record Retention Rules and Best Practices webinar. My name is Andrew Devine, an account executive here at ISSi, and I will be your moderator for today's webinar. Today's presenters will include myself, along with Datamation Imaging Services General Manager Steve Cady. To ensure audio clarity, all participant lines will remain muted throughout the presentation. We will be using mock or dummy data throughout today's presentation and the demonstration portion. Please be assured that ISSi client data or participant PHI will not be displayed at any time. Without further delay, I'd like to hand the presentation over to Steve Cady.
Thank you, Andrew. Again, my name is Steve Cady, General Manager of Datamation Imaging. For those of you who aren't familiar with Datamation, we are a document and data management company located in the suburbs of Chicago. We have been doing this for about 25 years now, and we work with all sorts of clients, all different size clients, but we do have quite a few in the Taft-Hartley arena, and that's why many of you may already be familiar with us or possibly already working with us. But ISSi and Datamation spend a lot of time in similar accounts, so we have worked together to form a partnership where our softwares are able to talk to each other, and that's what we're going to go into a little bit later. But first and foremost, I just want to kind of show you some of the fund offices that we have worked with in the past. So as you can see, we've worked with a lot of different offices, have a lot of experience with Taft-Hartley. And again, these aren't all local to Illinois. You know, we work with folks in New York and California and, you know, all throughout the U.S. So location doesn't really affect the ability for us to work with you and, you know, kind of give you guys some ideas. But the reason we're here today is to talk about document retention. So as you saw in the last slide, we work with a lot of different fund offices and a lot of different multi-employer funds. And what I have learned in all of my years working with all of those different funds is that no two funds have the same document retention policies, and in fact, many of them don't have any official policy at all. So what we're going to do is decide how long do I need to keep these records. It's a question that a lot of fund offices have, and the answer is it really depends on the record. So according to the International Foundation of Employee Benefits Plan, in general, all plan-related records should be kept for at least 7 years, but many need to be maintained permanently, and others until the participant in question is paid their benefit under the plan. So if you look at the next slide here, you will see here is a list of some of the records that are recommended to keep permanently. There's things like board meeting minutes, participant files, contribution reports. Now, contribution reports, we have a little asterisk there, and that's because some fund offices treat their contribution reports more as financial records, which would meet the 7-year requirement to keep the files. However, most or a lot of the other offices do consider them participant information that they'd want to keep indefinitely. Another reason people like to keep those longer is you may have a lot of this information tracked in your ISSi system, but if you have members dating back, let's say 50 years, who have been working with you guys, not all of that data may be in that system, so it's not a bad idea to keep things like contribution reports forever, even though some people do handle them more like they're an accounting type document. Here's a few more that are suggested to keep permanently. You'll see things on there like jurisdiction, meeting minutes. I know was on the last slide. Meeting minutes is another great one that people would want to keep, and not only keep, but put into some type of a document management system. Reason being is you may, remember speaking, oh, well, I know we had a meeting, and at the meeting we talked to Datamation about an imaging system, but I don't really remember when that was or what the outcome of that was. With things like a document management system, we can help you meet your retention policies, but also give you the ability to quickly find that information. Even if you don't remember exact dates or times, you can do searches for words like Datamation, and it would go and locate that item no matter where it's located in your meeting minutes project. So there's a value to keeping the information and having it available to retrieve quickly. Few more document types here that are suggested to keep 6 years plus the current year. So pretty much what that comes down to is about a 7-year keep. And again, this is for a lot of things financial related, bank statements, W-2s, 1099s, you know, so a lot of different files here. And then the last one, the only thing that falls outside of the 7 or indefinite plan would be things like enrollment cards, which are recommended for 4 years. Now, some people keep enrollment cards as part of their participant file, so you may want to hold them longer just as part of that file, because it takes a lot of time for someone to go through all of your paper documents to, you know, flip through every page to find the enrollment card and pull them out when they hit the 4-year mark. However, again, if this were in some type of a document management system, these items could be flagged automatically and removed from the file when they hit that 4-year mark without anybody having to go manually do anything, you know, to locate the types of files you want to remove. Once you have your document, you know, all these different doc types we're talking about, you really need to have a document retention schedule. A lot of folks, again, have different ones or not at all. But we highly recommend that every fund office has some type of a document retention schedule. And to make your retention schedule binding, there are 3 criteria that you must meet. 1 is it must be in writing. 2 is it must be reviewed by your legal counsel, because again, there are different laws in different states. So these are best practice recommendations we're giving you, but they are by no means the end-all be-all. You really want to run this past your own legal to make sure that you are in compliance with all local and state laws. And 3, it must be approved by the board. So again, reasons you want a document retention schedule is you are liable for any data you retain. So you need to weigh out the risks versus rewards for keeping data longer than legally necessary. It's okay to delete something, if it's okay to delete something after 7 years and you kept it beyond that, then if for some reason there was any type of litigation, you would be required to produce that data, and that would be something that they could use in any kind of court proceedings. So you, again, speak with your legal counsel, weigh out the risk versus rewards of keeping things longer than the requirement. You know, again, not saying that that's a bad thing. It may make sense for some fund offices to do that, but you really just want to understand that if you keep something longer than you're required, then any of that data is something you're going to be liable for. So you just have to decide if that's, you know, best scenario for your world to keep it or to get rid of it. Also, you know, to help you kind of come up with a document retention policy, we have a few articles that we can recommend. When we complete the webinar today, we're going to send out a copy of this to everybody. So these links will be available to you. And again, it's just something you can use to kind of help guide you into what the proper retention policies are or how to come up with a plan. But again, we're going to caveat that with, you know, please be sure to run everything past your legal department to make sure that it meets all the local requirements. Okay, so we're going to talk a little about best practices. So now you have your policy, and what do you do now? Because let's say something hits that deadline or that timer, what's an easy way to now eliminate those files if you deem that that's the right thing to do? So again, a document management system, which is what we help Taft-Hartley funds implement, is going to be a really good way to handle that, because we can set things up in here that monitor all of your digitized records, and they will automatically flag items that have met those retention policies that you set up in your organization. So as soon as it hits that timer, it will automatically either purge itself, or what we recommend is it will do a type of flagging so that somebody can then go back and review all of those flagged items and confirm that they've met the requirements and they are now okay to permanently delete. And again, it's very easy with a document management system. If you look at this next slide, you're going to see a very, very simple setup. And all we're doing here is, again, this is kind of just one example, but let's say 1099 forms you have to keep for 7 years. And I know it's a little bit hard to see on the screen, but it's as simple as going in and saying any document type labeled 1099 form that has a date of January 1st, 1900, or, you know, through today's date minus 7 years. So that would mean it's now hit you know, if it came in 7 years ago, we've now hit the 7-year mark, this item could then be tagged, and on the next slide you'll see a list would get generated, and this list can then be reviewed. Thank you. So then it would just produce a list that somebody can then review and decide, yes, this met the requirements, or no, it didn't. And at this point, you can say, well, yeah, we don't need these files anymore. We can go ahead and purge them. You know, or again, this can be done automatically if you're confident that the rules are sound, that you don't have to be reviewed, and they can just have the files permanently removed at this point. So once you decide you have your retention policies and you know how you're going to, you know, implement them, you're going to have to do a few things, and you're going to have to assess the files that you currently have. So the first step would be to gather the files, and that means kind of go through your file cabinets. Maybe there's boxes, you might have some off-site. It could be under somebody's desk, so you need to kind of hunt down and find where all of your files are. You then want to do a file assessment on them. The file assessment is where you identify the documents. Are these contribution reports? Are these participant data? Is this information related to meeting minutes? So this is something that we can assist with, or we can make recommendations, and you can do all of this yourself internally to identify the files and kind of sort them into the necessary groups of work so that, you know, they're able to be retrieved later. Then the final step is, once that's been identified, you know, there could be different outcomes. Maybe things are going to be scanned so that you can have them digitized and in a repository. Some folks say, well, it's already hit the 7-year mark, we're going to go ahead and destroy those. Again, there's other people that like to store things in offsite storage when they hit a certain time limit, or it can be a combination of these. Some people will scan, and then once they scan, they'll shred the original, and then they have the scanned image in the system, which is a legal binding document if you scan as a normal course of work. But again, I'm going to suggest you run that past your local legal counsel because, you know, again, different rules in different states. But typically, if you do it as a course of business, then you're okay. So again, it doesn't have to be a one-size-fits-all. This can all be completely customized, and the process is going to be dependent on your local, you know, organization. So once things are assessed, they would go into what we refer to as a project. So a project can be, as you see here, you can have a claims project, an employer, participant files, remittance. And what's nice is, in projects like employer files, participant files, and remittance, it can be set up in a way where the ISSi-scan tool can bring the files you need to see with the click of a button, for example, on the participant screen, which Andrew's going to show you in just a couple of minutes. But likewise, other projects like legal mailings or minutes can also be stored and retrieved by using our document management system independently of the iScan tool. So, you know, you don't just have to digitize files that are related to members or the ISSi product. You know, we absolutely recommend doing that because it makes it very easy. If you're on the phone with a member, you can literally be on the phone with them, and if you need to find something like a birth certificate, you can hit a button, bring it up, and you never had to leave your desk or walk to a file. So we highly recommend the integration with the ISSi system when it's appropriate, but we also have the ability to store files and retrieve files outside of that system, similar to, like I said, the meeting minutes or maybe legal mailings. Some other benefits of digitization is obviously you're emptying file cabinets, so you're going to save some space in your facilities. Again, it's going to let you retrieve the files much quicker and from anywhere. We have a lot of folks now who are working remotely, and it's very difficult if a member calls and needs a copy of a file. If that file is hanging in a file cabinet at the office and they're working from home, it's going to make it a little bit difficult to answer the participants' questions. However, you know, you can obviously use the ISSi system to get a lot of that information, but if it is something where you needed to see an original, if it were digitized, you know, if it was something that was converted, then you could easily see that from home through a secure portal. So again, all of that's going to be tracked, especially for HIPAA compliancy. So we do, you know, offer HIPAA compliancy in this, or this is a HIPAA compliant software, I should say. Just owning the software doesn't make you HIPAA compliant. You need to use it appropriately, obviously. We also, you know, can offer digital backups for disaster recovery, so you can, you know, bring the systems back up quicker if need be. We also can do things like remote auditing. You know, a lot of you obviously have auditors come in, and maybe they want to look for the John Doe file, and while they're looking through that, they, you know, lean over and see John Smith's file on somebody's desk and start going through that, and maybe they find something that they weren't even looking for, but because it was available to them, it's now something they're aware of. With this, you can give them outside access, so when they log in, they will only see the records they're requesting to see, and they can't poke around and see other stuff. They're literally, you give them access to what they can see. Once they're done with it, you remove that access, and then you can give them more access to different things. So you can kind of, you streamline the process, but also restrict access to only the files that they're looking for. And again, one of the best reasons is to integrate with systems like ISSi, where if you need an original and you're in ISSi system, you hit a button, you're looking at the original document, and you don't have to keep getting up and walking back and forth to the file cabinet. So to that end, I'm going to hand this back over to Andrew and ask Andrew to maybe show a demonstration of how the systems work together and the ease of use that we have between our two systems.
Thank you very much, Steve. So yeah, at this time, what we'd like to do is take you into a brief product demonstration of the ISSi-scan interface, and you will see a few screens from the image silo product from Datamation. But if you'd like to get a more in-depth demonstration from Datamation on their platform and their services, following today's webinar, Steve Cady will be more than happy to provide those one-on-one demonstrations if requested. So just to briefly explain what the ISSi-scan solution is prior to jumping into the demonstration. So ISSi-scan is essentially going to provide seamless integration between the funds document management systems such as Datamation's Papervision or image silo products and the ISSi benefits administration system. So again, the thought process is if you're already in the ISSi system looking at an individual's record, their information, linking to a system like image silo will allow you for that quick integration to look up documents and additional information on that participant without having to go back and forth essentially between the two interfaces in a separate manner. So that's one of the main features of the iScan solution. Next up, the document image files can be indexed and searched by multiple identifiers within the ISSi benefit administration system. So essentially what I mean by that is in terms of linking documents that are stored in Datamation system to the records and files in the ISSi system, that can be accomplished through various identifiers, including social security numbers, unique identifiers, so on and so forth. The interfaces of iScan can be set up in various maintenance screens across the ISSi system. So this may include the participant maintenance screen, dependent maintenance, pensioner maintenance, the employer maintenance screen, as well as claims. We can also link documents to various claims under the claims maintenance screen. And then lastly, just the ease of navigation and quick access to document image files via application links, or AKA the hotkeys in ISSi, in Ultra or MX. And also we can link documents at the field level with field icons based upon what documents are available in the Datamation system. So with that being said, I'd like to now take you out and into our ISSi Ultra demonstration system. So again, today's demonstration will be provided in the Ultra system. However, the iScan interface can be set up in either on either the MX platform or the Ultra platform. It will look slightly different, but the main functionality will be there. Before I go in, just another reminder that today we're using mock or dummy data, and please be assured that ISSi client data or participant PHI will not be displayed at any time. So we'll go ahead, we'll log into our system here. We'll select database if that's relevant to you. And then from our menu here on the left-hand side of the screen, we will go into, in today's case, we will go into our participant maintenance screen. We will key in the individual we'd like to look at. And as you can see here, we have our record up. We're looking at Billy's record here. And again, say you're coming into his record, you're looking at his information, but let's say you need to go a step further and look at some documents for Billy. So with our iScan interface, a couple ways we can accomplish that is, as I had mentioned earlier, at the field level, we have the ability to create these little field icons next to the relevant fields in which a document pertains. So in the case of the birth date field, this may be linked to a birth certificate. In the case of the marital status field, this may be linked to a marriage certificate. So we will go ahead and click on the icon next to birth date. It will essentially, again, do a call out to Datamation system. It will pull up, in this case, the specific document that we had done the inquiry on, in this case, the birth certificate, and it will load it up in its viewer here, in which you can then view the document. And as I mentioned earlier, what we're showing you now is the image silo product offered by Datamation, and they will be more than happy to provide you with a demonstration on this platform once you get into their software. So again, just showing you the ease of integration between the two systems and how you can quickly pull up various documents. Going back to Billy's record in the ISSi system, so as I mentioned, we have the field level icons. In addition to that, if you just wanted to get a full list of all the documents in the Datamation system for Billy, you can simply come over to your application link for ISScan, click on that, and that will load up, again, the image silo product in this case, and it will give you a full listing of all documents out there that have been loaded into this system for Billy. Again, we're indexing these documents based on Billy's information, whatever the identifiers are for indexing the documents in this case. And from here, we can go in and we can view any of the documents by simply clicking on them and viewing that document. And again, you can kind of go back and forth once you're in the viewer here to view all the documents that are out there for Billy. So again, this is pretty much the extent of what we'll be showing you today as it relates to the image silo product from Datamation. Like I said, Steve Cady will be more than happy to schedule additional one-on-one demonstrations to kind of show you what they have to offer from a full-fledged document management system standpoint. But we'll go ahead and jump back into our demo system for the ISSi-scan product. And again, keep in mind linking documents at the field level as well as the application link level for a full set of documents. And again, when clicking these links here, they'll only pull up documents associated with the record that you're currently in within the ISSi system. And all of that setup and linking will be done between Datamation and ISSi. We work very well together, as Steve had mentioned. We've implemented many integrations with each other. So again, a very seamless process there as well for getting the ISScan interface and the Datamation system set up and working together. All right. So, and if you have any more questions about the ISSi-scan interface itself, or if you'd like to get a one-on-one demonstration of this interface, I would be more than happy to set those demonstrations up with you as well. So again, at the end of the presentation today, we'll be providing our contact information and how you can reach out to us. All right, so we're going to go back into the presentation, and we're going to wrap it up, and I'm going to pass it back over to Steve at this time.
Thanks, Andrew. So next steps, I would highly recommend that everybody go and review their document retention schedules, see if they have anything defined, and if not, I really recommend moving forward to that end. Also, keep up to date with legal changes. Just as an example, there may be some records, like here in Illinois, there's some records that we're required to keep for 7 years. But, who's to say in the next year or two that's not changed to a 2-year retention schedule? So things are changing all the time. By having a digital copy, it just makes it easier because rules can be turned on, off, or changed at any point based on current laws. So it's not something where you have to keep going back to the original files and identifying things that maybe you don't need any longer. So again, review your retention schedule, keep up to date on your legal changes, and implement a retention policy and solution by doing both the file assessment and possibly considering a digital option to help manage that. So with that is all I had for you today. So I'm going to give it back to Andrew to wrap things up, and we'll go from there.
All right. Thank you very much again, Steve. All right. So we do have one question, Steve. This is a question as it relates to migrating from a current document management vendor to your platform, and specifically the question is, can the documents that are currently stored on that platform be transferred over to your platform without losing any information?
The answer to that is yes. So we worked with fund offices that have no platforms and they just have files stored on a server in maybe directories and things like that. We absolutely can help with files in that format. We also are very well versed with many of the existing document management systems. So what we would want to do is work with that person and find out what system they have. And yes, we have a professional services team here that can assist in getting the data out and converting it with, you know, we would retain all of the images and all the index data, so none of that would have to be reproduced. So yeah, for that type of engagement, we would just want to know more about what system it's in and have that conversation.
Perfect, perfect. And actually, a bit of a follow-up to that question. Approximately, from your experience, on average, how long does that process usually take place to migrate someone off an existing DMS platform to your platform?
Yeah, and you know, it doesn't take long. What normally takes longer is just identifying the scope of the data that's in the system. A lot of the fund offices, you know they have records, but they don't really know how much or what all the records are. So we would engage and try to scope that out. Once we know what we're getting into, in essence, you know, once we know what data it is, what it's going to be converted from, what it's going to be converted to, the process itself, again, depending on the amount of data, usually we could do, you know, it could be days to weeks. It's not like it's going to be weeks or months. So most of the time we spend a lot of our time with our due diligence understanding the process so that when we do pull the switch, it is a very minimal amount of time that a system might be offline, or in the event it's kept online, we would restrict access to anybody making changes to the old platform just to make sure all of those changes come through. So yeah, in most cases it's done in, you know, days to weeks. Very, very rarely. In fact, I can't even think of an example where it took, you know, weeks to months.
Perfect, perfect. And then kind of going a step further, in terms of the entire setup, and I know you can kind of only speak for yourselves in terms of what the entire setup would look like for a prospective client who would be getting your system set up for the first time, let's say. But then, based on your experience in working with ISSi and our ISScan team, what would you say is probably the average implementation time frame from start to finish, again, when working in collaboration with ISSi? And I realize, you know, the time frames can vary based upon client, but what is your, from your experience, like the average time frame for the entire process when integrating with ISScan?
Yeah, and again, it is kind of a case-by-case basis, but it's not long at all. Again, I'm going to refer to the days to weeks, and I'm going to qualify that by saying that's once it's on everybody's schedule. Because again, if somebody calls me today and says, hey, I'd like to have a document management system installed tomorrow, well, you know, chances are we're not going to be able to turn that around, you know, at that point. But if you call me and say, I'd like to have a document management system and work with the ISSi product, we would coordinate, and let's say, you know, today is February 4th, we might be able to say, okay, on February 15th, we're going to start this conversion, and once we start, it's only, again, going to take a day or two. So it really depends. Another factor is there are two, what I will refer to as flavors of the software, and I think it's similar to the ISSi product. We have an in-house version that can be installed locally in an organization on their servers, or we have a cloud-based model. So the cloud-based model, obviously, because we have control over it, we can usually move a little quicker on that. In-house, again, doesn't take us long for the implementation. We just have to get a few more working parts going because we have to talk with your server provider, and we have to talk with somebody to get us remote access. What's nice is often that happens to be ISSi. So if ISSi is managing your servers and your network, it makes the transition much easier because, again, because of our relationship, we have the ability to call them. They'll get us access very quickly to what we need. They know what we need access to because it's something that we do, you know, very often with each other. So again, I'm kind of straying away from your original question, but it doesn't take more than a few days to weeks as long as we can get it scheduled and make sure everybody's on the same page as to, you know, their availability.
Wonderful. Well, yeah, thank you very much for that information. I guess I will add to that a little bit. You know, obviously, Also, you know, implementations dependent upon, like you said, client availability. Obviously, you know, clients must be in agreement to, you know, everything from initial proposals and obviously in agreement to all of the upfront factors associated with integrating these systems. So as long as that's all taken care of and out of the way, then again, like you had mentioned, Steve, this seems like a fairly efficient implementation cycle when it comes to the ISScan and the Datamation products.
Absolutely.
Wonderful. So there are a few more questions coming in, but what I'm going to do actually while we give people some time to type any additional questions, just want to make note of the contact information for Steve, Katie, and myself. Please feel free to reach out to either of us regarding which, you know, if you're interested in either Datamation's products or ISSi's products as it relates to ISScan or image silo or paper vision, please reach out to either of us, and we'll be more than happy to provide additional one-on-one demonstrations for each of those platforms and have conversations with you regarding your specific setup and what your needs are as an organization for document management solutions. Another question that came through is obviously at this time, you know, with COVID, on-site implementations, is that still something that is still happening case by case, or can these, you know, in the case of your products from Datamation, can these be implemented remotely? And also kind of adding to that, the process with scanning all of the documents, how does that tie in? Is that something that falls completely on the clients, or are there options for them as far as getting those documents scanned in?
Great question. So the two different questions there. So we're going to start with the implementation. With or without COVID, you know, being around, we absolutely can install these systems and configure things remotely. Again, we work with countries throughout the U.S., so sometimes it makes it easier if we can, you know, do it remotely. That being said, we have no problem, you know, once things are in a safe position, we have no problem coming on site and doing on-site implementation and or training. Again, our training can be handled remotely as well. We do that all the time, so it's not something that's new to us. So now to your question regarding the conversion of the documents. Datamation is a full service bureau, meaning we have the equipment and the technology here to do a lot of the document conversion for customers. We also are one of the leading scanner sellers in well, I want to say country, but I think some years it's world. But the last few, it's been the country. So we sell more scanners than, you know, some of the big box stores that you'll hear about. So we can absolutely recommend scanners, scanning softwares that will be able to be utilized in-house so people can do the conversion themselves. What seems to be kind of the best practice or the go-to is we will work with the fund office, find out what their ongoing volume is, but because maybe they have, you know, file rooms filled with paper, we don't want to put them into equipment or software that is going to accommodate them for the back file, but then it's going to be overkill for their day forward if they have a much smaller volume. So what seems to be best practices is we will implement systems where we will put scanners and software into an organization to handle their day forward scanning and give them the ability to grow. But we will then do the conversion of the back file so we can come in, get those files, bring them to our facility. So while we're scanning the back file, they can be doing the ongoing. It's all going to feed the same place. So, you know, all the files will end up there, but that way, you know, end users don't have to buy very large pieces of equipment to handle the enormous volume they have in the back, and then going forward, a small desktop scanner might be all that they need. So that kind of gives you the best of both worlds. But again, we, you know, treat every customer individually. If they want to handle the entire thing themselves, we absolutely can, you know, put systems in there that will allow you to do that, and hardware. If you say, I never want to touch a piece of paper in my office ever, we can set schedules up where we do that conversion for you on an ongoing basis. So we can do as much or as little scanning ourselves, and we can get you guys, you know, to the point where you can do as much or as little as you'd like to in your organization.
Wonderful. Thank you very much for that information, Steve. All right, well, it looks like at this time there are no further questions, so on behalf of everyone at ISSi and Datamation, we thank you for participating in today's webinar, and a big thanks to Datamation for collaborating with ISSi today to put on this webinar. So we greatly thank you for your involvement in today's webinar. Otherwise, have a great day, and thank you very much.